You know what's interesting about people who are obsessed with their motorcycles? To the outside world, it looks like a dangerous hobby, a midlife crisis, or just a loud way to get from point A to point B. But it's never really about the machine. Psychology research suggests that what looks like obsession is actually something much deeper: identity, risk, and a very specific kind of freedom. Today, we are looking at the 8 signs you love your motorcycle too much and what those behaviors actually reveal about your inner psychological landscape. Stick around for sign 7. It explains a specific mental state that riders call wind therapy, but science calls something much more profound. It's the reason why, for a rider, the longest route home is always the shortest path to sanity. Sign 1. You size up every road like a puzzle, not a path. Car drivers see a road, you see a surface. You scan for gravel patches, uneven tarmac, manhole covers placed at the worst possible angle. You notice how shadows change grip in autumn. You read a corner before you enter it. Cognitive psychologists call this situational awareness, a heightened state of environmental processing where the brain is constantly anticipating rather than simply reacting. Research from the Human Factors Journal found that experienced motorcyclists demonstrate significantly higher perceptual scanning rates than other road users. They don't just look, they read. It's not anxiety, it's a mind that has been trained, through necessity, to think in 3 dimensions at 60 miles per hour. That's not obsession, that's expertise wearing a helmet. Sign 2. You feel something close to grief when the riding season ends. Not disappointment, not mild inconvenience, something heavier. The bike sits covered in the garage, and something in your week goes quiet. You check the forecast on days you can't ride. You find yourself watching onboard footage at midnight for no clear reason. Behavioral researchers studying seasonal deprivation in hobby groups have found that passionate riders report mood and motivation dips in off-season months at rates comparable to people separated from a primary coping mechanism. Psychologists call this object relationship disruption, the emotional cost of losing daily access to something your nervous system has come to rely on for regulation. The bike isn't just parked, a part of your daily self is parked with it. Sign 3. You talk to other riders like you share a language no one else speaks. It starts with a nod, a 2-finger wave at low speed, then a roadside conversation with a complete stranger that runs 40 minutes without either of you noticing. You didn't plan it, you just started talking about suspension and somehow ended up on life philosophy. Social psychologists call this in-group cohesion, the powerful bonding that happens when people share an identity with real stakes attached to it. Motorcycling creates what researchers call a high-commitment identity marker. You can't fake it. You either ride or you don't. And people who do instantly recognize each other, not just by the gear, but by something in how they carry themselves. It's not a club, it's a frequency, and riders are tuned to it without trying. Sign 4. You remember every bike you've ever owned or ridden in specific, almost physical detail. Not just the make and the year, the weight of the clutch, the way it pulled at certain revs, the specific vibration through the bars on a cold morning before the engine settled. You can close your eyes and be back on a bike you sold 7 years ago. Autobiographical memory research shows that emotionally intense, physically embodied experiences create some of the brain's most durable memory traces. Motorcycling is full body. It's not like remembering a screen or a seat. It's kinesthetic, stored in the same neural pathways as skill, not just event. Psychologists call these somatic memories. They don't just live in the mind, they live in the hands, the knees, the spine. Forgetting a bike you loved would feel like forgetting how to ride. They're the same thing. Consider this for a moment. How often do we misread these behaviors? Someone who won't stop talking about their motorcycle may seem self-absorbed. Someone who refuses a shortcut to take the scenic road may seem impractical. Someone who spends a Sunday polishing a bike no one else will notice may seem obsessive. But sometimes these are actually signs of something far more intentional,
a relationship with a machine that mirrors how we relate to risk, to freedom, and to being fully present in our own lives. Sign 5. You are uncomfortable on days you don't ride in a way you struggle to explain. Not bored, off, like something in the background of your mood hasn't quite loaded. You're present in conversations, but there's an edge. The day feels slightly longer than it should. You're functional, but not quite right. Neuroscience research points to something called a behavioral regulation loop, a cycle where habitual, high-engagement activities train the brain to expect a specific pattern of dopamine and adrenaline. When that pattern is interrupted, the nervous system registers a low-level deficit. It's not addiction in the clinical sense, but it's not nothing either. Riding, for people wired this way, isn't a leisure activity, it's a recalibration mechanism. Miss it too many days in a row, and the calibration drifts.
Sign 6. You take risks on a motorcycle you would never take in any other area of your life. Calculated ones, not reckless. You study the line through a fast corner for miles before you reach it. You don't exceed your limits, you know them precisely, and you ride right up to the edge of them. That's a very specific psychological relationship with risk. Research in sensation-seeking theory developed by psychologist Marvin Zuckerman identifies a personality type that requires a certain threshold of arousal to feel fully alert and engaged. Motorcycling is one of the few legal, socially accessible activities that meets that threshold without destroying your life. The risk isn't the point. The management of risk is the point. That distinction is everything. People who don't ride sometimes call it reckless. Riders know it's the opposite. It's the most controlled they ever feel. Sign 7. Riding alone on the right road makes your mind go completely quiet. And this is the sign most riders carry but struggle to put into words. You find the right stretch of road, you open the throttle, and something that has been running in the background of your head, the loop of thoughts, the low hum of stress, just stops. Riders call it wind therapy, but psychology has a more precise name for what's actually happening. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow states describes a condition of complete absorption where the demands of an activity exactly match a person's skill level. Motorcycling hits that threshold almost by design. Too slow and the mind wanders. Too fast and fear overrides everything. But at the right speed, on the right road, the brain enters a state of focused present-moment processing, and the default mode network, the part responsible for rumination, self-criticism, and anxious looping, goes offline. It's not the road that quiets you. It's what the road demands of you. For people who live inside their heads, the helmet becomes a container, and everything outside it, for once, stays outside. That's why the longest route home is always the shortest path back to yourself. Sign 8. The pride you feel about your motorcycle has nothing to do with how it looks to anyone else. It's not about the compliments, it's about knowing it. Every fault, every quirk, every specific behavior in cold weather versus warm. You know what that rattle means. You know which component will need attention before it asks for it. That knowledge feels like something, like ownership that goes deeper than a logbook. Psychologists describe this as perceived competence, the satisfaction derived not from external validation, but from genuine mastery of something real and demanding. In a world engineered for convenience, a motorcycle still requires you. It will not ride itself. It will not forgive inattention. Every mile it gives you is a mile you earned. That quiet pride, standing next to a machine you understand completely, that's not about status. That's about the rare and deeply human experience of being good at something that could have beaten you. And maybe that's what motorcycle obsession is really about when you look past the chrome and the noise and the raised eyebrows. It's not really about the machine. At its core, it's about the human need to feel fully alive, to carry risk without being crushed by it, to find in motion the stillness that everything else refuses to give you, a mind that keeps scanning, keeps listening,
and keeps finding, somewhere between the first corner and the last mile, the clearest version of itself it ever gets to be.